Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The final weekend of the World Championship is just about to get underway, but the big story of yesterday was the big announcements to changes for the VCT format in 2025. Some things are changing, some things though are not changing in many ways that the pros might like them to. I'm sure that despite some of the positives here, many pros will be saying, hey, hang on a second, why are we still not playing much VALORANT at all? Because on some levels, they've taken the current season and they've just spread it out further. That has its positives, that has its negatives. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. This is Ye back in action. Here he is from Shazam's point of view, absolutely cooking. And, well, it's pretty exciting to see whether Ye's going to come back. This was fascinating, really. So, Thorin did a Reflections episode with Legia, talking about his, CS career and everything like that. But he did have a few words to say on Ye specifically. Of course, he was coaching that Bleed Esports organization. So, Legia says, Ye and Crazy Guy had big problems from day one, and Ye tried his best to resolve these issues with Crazy Guy, but the latter was not very cooperative, he says. I will say what I found most interesting from this, though, was when he says that actually Ye was completely frying in their practice, and like he was unbelievably confident because Ye was averaging 290 ACS over hundreds of scrims. We were destroying every single team in practice. The issue is, though, that some of the internal drama affected the team, and also the pressure got to Ye. He said that the pressure hits Ye so hard that he completely loses himself, and they went through a few things to try and resolve that. Obviously, Ye also talked about his eyesight and the issues he was having there, and that seems to be a potential consequence of like major pressure, like getting to the eyesight. So there's been talk as well about whether like talking to a sports psychologist and stuff like this could really help him, and I think it probably could. So, and obviously we're seeing Ye now back on the timeline popping at some insane moments. I mean, this is from Ye's Twitter just yesterday or whatever, and here he goes with the Sheriff, 1, 2, and he gets the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Absolutely disgusting clip from Ye. So, yeah, this is literally from yesterday, right? Yesterday evening. So really exciting stuff to see Ye back on the timeline, back in action, and from Legia's point of view, like, Ye has not lost it. Like, he is convinced that Ye is still the player that he was, still absolutely, cooking and with the potential to be a real superstar. It's just the team situation and the pressure has been getting to him, and if they can resolve those issues, Ye can be a real force for years to come in VALORANT. So that's pretty exciting because, I'm hoping that Ye gets a spot somewhere else in the league. Just to quickly comment on this, because Tarek mentions, why are we at Champions and not many matches are actually in a big arena? They're in like a theatre type of setup. And even Slasher made, I thought, what was a fair point really, because with IEM Cologne going on over the last few days, it's like VALORANT is great in many ways, but from like a spectacle perspective and from an esports product perspective, like what you see at IEM Cologne and like Katowice and in big events like this is a different level to what you see in VALORANT right now. And even as Chet says, lots of esports related things and communication can be better over in VALORANT. Now, Leah Farrier and the team actually kind of responded to Tarek, who was saying like, why are we not in an arena? And basically the perspective was, which is fair, that when you're hiring a big venue, you're typically doing so for just a few days, right? So, 3 days maybe, even for like a concert, it's one night, stuff like this, 1, 2, 3 days. Whereas VALORANT, their events are over like 3 weeks, right? So they're not going to have this massive venue for 18 days. That's just not logistically feasible or maybe financially feasible to do so. So the solution is either you do what we currently do, which is when lots of the matches, very important matches, are played in like a theatre, really, like a studio setup with not really much crowd, and the timings locally mean that many people aren't even there, and it just feels very underwhelming for the biggest event of the year. And that's their current solution. In my opinion, the better way to do it is to say, okay, how about we change the format of these tournaments, right? I don't understand, personally, just coming from like the background of other esports, why the tournaments take so long. I don't see why we have to be in Seoul for 3 weeks for the World Championship. And also, because of this, all the other teams that aren't at that event have nothing to do during that time period. So, most esports really, like even let's say a Counter-Strike major, yes, they run the qualifiers for the big playoffs in a studio setup for weeks. But once you get to that point, over the course of just a few days, the champion is crowned, and it's the same for something like IEM Cologne as well. So I personally just think the entire tournament format needs to be reconsidered because, we want to see matches like Sin versus Fnatic in front of a crowd on the big stage. The way to do that is to condense the length of the tournament so that you have more going on a singular day. That's my opinion. You guys may disagree. But this is interesting. We saw them do a stream, of course, talking basically a press conference. They were talking about next year's formats. This is kind of crazy, though, that all the viewership for the playoffs of every single region, the Americas, of course, EMEA and Pacific, add them up together, and they still don't get to what China was for their playoffs in just year one. This, though, is one of the great things this esport does do, which is $35 million going to the teams because of all the capsule sales and all the bundle sales. So this is like genuinely a way to actually make esports work, and Riot have done a killer job of this over the last couple of years, and of course made a killing for themselves as well. But obviously a lot of that money also filters down to the teams. This is pretty crazy that Champions 2024 saw 1.73 million pick'ems made, which is actually more than Worlds for League of Legends, which are crazy. Like, that's really crazy to me, at least more than Worlds for last year. So some great numbers they're sharing. This is interesting too. John Needham talking about the Esports World Cup. Now, when we discuss the format in a second, we'll see where that World Cup might fit in. We are actively in discussions, nothing to currently announce. So if you guys weren't aware, the Esports World Cup just happened. I mean, it concludes this week in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and basically every esports CS, League of Legends, whatever, has been there. VALORANT was the only real big name omission in terms of like top tier esports, and they said, oh, scheduling conflicts, they couldn't make it work. Now, this event runs over July, August. So as we'll see in a couple of seconds, July, August is still going to be pretty busy next year, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. And from my understanding, from like a couple of conversations I had out there in Riyadh, like I'm 95+% confident that, yeah, Valorant will be there next year, but I guess time will tell on that one. This, as well, as I say, Champions 2026 is going to be in China. I think 2025 is going to be in Paris. I think that's the current discussion. And then 2027, it will come back to the Americas. So that seems to be the plan going on there. But, let's talk about the locations and what the format is going to look like. As next year, there's going to be 3 big events. Well, actually, kind of 4 events. We'll see in a second. Masters Bangkok in Thailand. So pretty cool to see. I thought this was really cool to see. As Tarek says, didn't expect Bangkok to be here. They're doing a Toronto one in Canada, which really exciting. Toronto's a fantastic city. And then, yeah, Champions Paris in France. This is the kickoff format for next season, and I'll just discuss this briefly because what it looks like to me is that the top seeds are likely going to, well, they're going to get a bye in the brackets here for the kickoff in the various regions, and those 4 seeds are probably going to be the top 4 teams from the World Championship from the various regions. So this is going to be the kickoff format for every region, and the top 4 teams from that actually made champions this year, they will get a bye in the bracket. Of course, the top 2 teams of this tournament then will go to Masters Bangkok, as we shall see in a second. Marved, of course, Canadian player, he says, hey, looking for a team, get me to Masters Toronto. And Sabrosa says, at home for Season 3, a Tom's mega match for Season 4. It's pretty exciting to see. But this is the format for next year. And the first thing you'll notice is it's basically the same. It's just more spread out. Now, I don't mind this on some level. The fact that there's a shorter off-season is good. I mean, there really isn't much of an off-season at all. You guys can actually see it here. This is the Challenger side. This is the Premier, of course, going all the time. But Game Changers Championship in November, World Championship ending next year in October, and then you pretty much have November, December, and then it gets underway in January again. This, I think, is how all esports should be. There should not be more than 2 months off, because why do you need more than a 2-month break? There's no reason. It's literally esports. You're playing a game. Like, you don't have to massively recover and whatever. And in regular sports, they play 10 months of the year anyway, and those are really physical games. So they're spreading it out, which is good. A shorter off season is good. No doubt in my mind on that one. The problem is, to me, the format is basically the same. It's just they're spreading it out. What I really would love to see is that for both Stage 1 and Stage 2, it's complete single round robin for every team, but I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be. So anyway, January starts with a kickoff again. I still feel a bit weird about a kickoff straight into a Masters. Like, you run a kickoff tournament, 12 teams as it will be next year after Ascension this year in all of the various regions. You run that bracket that we just mentioned. The top 2 teams at the end of the bracket go to Masters Bangkok. So you get an 8-team Masters. It's just not enough to me, and many of the teams at the kickoff will have just played a couple of matches, and then they'll be basically doing nothing until March. Like, they'll play in January, lose, and then do nothing until the end of March, April. Like, I still think that's a massive problem for the majority of the league to be in. Now, ideally, Stage 1 is full single round robin. Every team plays every other team, or at least every team plays at least like eight matches or something to get to the playoffs, get to Masters Toronto. But I think they might do the same thing, where every team plays every other team over the course of the year. So they play 5 games Stage 1, 6 games Stage 2. I think they should be playing 11 games stage 1 and 11 games stage 2. But knowing how it currently is, I don't expect that. Then the playoffs, of course, happen to determine the teams that go to Masters Toronto. That's perfectly fine. But and then I wonder where the World Cup might fit into this, right? Because the World Cup is going to happen probably again July, August. So there is a spot here in the first part of July, shortly after Masters Toronto, where they could do the World Cup. And, so I think that might be part of the plan. I guess we'll see. Then they run stage 2 in the playoffs. Then it goes to Champions again. No last chance qualifier. It's going to be on points. The other thing to note is that the let's say, records do not carry over. Stage 1 and Stage 2, they reset. So that is good, but at the same time, it needs to, that is only good if you're playing, the same competition that everyone else is playing, as in you play everyone else. And another change they did make is that every team now can have, if they want to field, an Academy roster in challenges. So Sentinels can have Sentinels in the Pro League, and then they can have Sentinels Academy in challenges, which I think is definitely a good change. But, this is pretty much the key changes here. We've got Champions Paris next year. We've got the kickoff, a 12-team double in bracket in January. The records no longer carry over. So as far as I'm concerned, some good things in there, some bad things in there. I like the longer season. I just still want more Valorant, and I think the players probably still want more Valorant as well. But enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Just to mention before we close out, tomorrow, actually, no, it's the day after tomorrow, so August the 23rd, of course, on the Friday, that's when things all kick up back into gear again. So Heretics versus Sentinels in the losers bracket, but starting off, it's Edward Liv in the upper final. So this is how things are looking over there. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Just to quickly mention on Sentinels, Zeltis secures another watch. Of course, he got bought one by Tens, didn't he? A nice, I think it was a Pepsi, maybe a new model Pepsi. This is actually a very interesting watch. If you guys are interested anyways, the Sentinels bought him this Rolex. It's a Rolex Datejust with a champagne dial, fluted bezel, Jubilee bracelet with the steel and gold. And this is like an old watch. This is nothing that they make nowadays at all. The last time they made anything similar to this, I think, was in maybe the early 2000s. And this looks like an older reference. So I think this is a watch from maybe the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, but I think late 1980s is probably when this watch is from. It's probably worth, $4,000-$5,000, maybe, depending on condition. Really cool watch. Really, really cool watch. And, Sentinels give that to him as a gift. So pretty cool stuff, not gonna lie. Very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.